Dricus du Plessis is absolutely being screwed out of a middleweight title shot in favor of Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman, a fight that was made yesterday. Dana White telling Pat McAfee that this will be a title eliminator, and I couldn't disagree more on this, and that is what we're going to talk about in today's video. Let's first talk about the fact that Dricus du Plessis is the number 2 ranked middleweight right now. He's supposed to fight Israel Adesanya. He had a foot injury, an injury, by the way, that he had prior to the Robert Whittaker fight, and he said, look, I don't think I can take this fight, and Dana White has basically blacklisted him from getting a title shot ever since, and it really seems like Dricus is going to have to fight someone else. So look, I'm not oblivious to the fact that Dana White already pretty much said that Dricus isn't going to get the shot, but this is going to be the title eliminator instead? Like, you're talking about Kamaru Usman, who is coming off 2 straight losses and is taking a fight on short notice and will potentially get a title shot against Sean Strickland. And I don't want to hear this nonsense either about how Usman has a win over Sean Strickland. That was a fight that took place in 2017 when Strickland was fighting at welterweight, a division he hasn't been in for a number of fights. And I personally don't think that should be enough for Usman to defeat Khamzat Chimaev, who, by the way, Chimaev is not ranked as a middleweight right now. He is ranked in the welterweight division at number 4. That should not get you a title shot. Now, look, Usman probably won't win. I mean, if I hate to, spoiler alert here, Chimaev is favored in this fight. He's probably going to win this one. He had the full camp. He's not taking this on short notice. He's younger than Usman. There's some school of thought that Usman might be, on the decline right now. We'll have to see how that unfolds on Saturday. And look, I have nothing against this fight, by the way. I think Chimaev and Usman is absolutely a great fight. My issue is that it's a title eliminator. I think Dricus has done far more in the division, and he deserves the title shot more than Chimaev or Usman. But let's say Chimaev wins. He's also in the same situation. If he beats Usman, he will have no ranked wins at middleweight and gets a title shot. Not to mention the fact that I think people are forgetting that Chimaev hasn't fought in a while. That win over Kevin Holland was last September in 2022. So why are we sort of rewarding this inactivity here? And now, Chimaev gets to fight a welterweight, basically. And here's the thing, Usman hasn't fought at middleweight before. Like, I could see if Usman had an earlier career at middleweight, maybe had some wins or something along those lines. Or I could even understand if Usman was still the champion at welterweight and he's stepping up to fight Chimaev. But to me, this win should not count for the middleweight division, right? It's Usman moving up. That shouldn't be automatically a title shot. Now, on the flip side, Dricus du Plessis, look at the run he's been on here, okay? He hasn't lost in the UFC. He's finished 4 of his last 5 opponents, so he's never good at math. You can tell why. And the last win especially, Robert Whittaker, finishing him in the second round. That's the thing. Like, if he had edged out a close decision over Whittaker and he was a massive underdog in this fight, which he was, I can understand them saying, okay, well, look, you missed your opportunity because you were injured. But he destroyed Robert Whittaker. This was one of the most incredible performances this year. And because he's not 100% to fight Adesanya, you're now going to make him fight someone else. I don't agree with that at all here. And here's the other thing, like, it's not like Dricus is some boring personality. He has a pretty big fan base. He's from South Africa. Trust me, when I'm doing content, Dricus content views very well. There is a lot of interest in him. And you've got a guy that, again, is very marketable, right? Good looking guy, exciting fighter. A lot of people want to see him and Sean Strickland next. I think that would be an incredible fight. But for whatever reason, the UFC is fixating on the fact that he couldn't fight against Israel Adesanya. And now they're going to give it to 2 fighters that, I'm sorry, just do not deserve it. And again, it has nothing to do with the fight itself. I'm a fan of this fight. I think this is a great replacement. I have mad respect for Kamaru Usman for stepping up to the plate on short notice like this and getting this opportunity. But this shouldn't equal a title shot. Again, they don't have a single ranked win. Now, look, I know there's going to be people out here comparing this to Colby Covington because people, if you look at Colby's resume, does not have a current win over a ranked opponent in the division. I completely understand that, okay? I think those arguments are fair. I've said in other videos, I think Bilal Muhammad deserves the title shot more than Colby Covington does. And I think it should be Bilal Muhammad fighting at UFC 296, not Colby Covington. However, even in that case, you could say at the very least that maybe Bilal doesn't have the personality that Colby has, and that's why it's, that's why they're doing it in favor of this. You could make that argument. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think Bilal's still a pretty popular fighter. He's got a huge fan base, but Colby does move the needle just a little bit more, I think, than Bilal, and that's where they're going with him. Chimaev definitely moves the needle a little bit more than Dricus in this spot, but it's not like Dricus is someone that's like got a boring personality or anything. I mean, you saw the war of words with him and Adesanya right after he beat Robert Whittaker. There's a lot of interest in a fight with Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, but I don't think that should be the fight next. Adesanya is coming off a clear loss to Sean Strickland. Dricus du Plessis is coming off a dominant performance over Robert Whittaker. Dricus should not have to fight Adesanya next. He should be getting the next title shot. And maybe it was also a situation, I've heard some people argue this, that, oh, well, it's the only way Usman could take the fight if he was guaranteed a title shot. I mean, just pay him more money then, but this should not be a title eliminator fight. I thought even prior to this, with Chimaev beating Paulo Costa, I think that's a tough sell too, with him getting a title shot over Paulo Costa. But at least with Paulo Costa, he's a ranked middleweight. Usman is not ranked at middleweight. He's never fought in the middleweight division in the UFC. So I'd have to go look up the stats, but I can't remember the last time a fighter that was never a UFC champion or never held the belt or never fought for a title, in the case of Khamzat Chimaev, gets a win over someone that's not ranked in the division and gets a title shot. It's just crazy to me. Yes, Chimaev has fights at middleweight, but none of those were against ranked opponents. That's my big issue here, is that there's really no merit to this at all. And I know, again, the UFC is going more with entertainment. I just brought up the Colby example. That's a prime example of this. But it's unfortunate what happened to Paulo Costa, the staph infection, him being out. I think Chimaev, if he wins this fight personally, I think he should have to fight someone else. There's a lot of fighters in the division that he could be taking on that I think would be fair. Like, even, you've got opponents out there. You've got, Marvin Vettori. You've got the Brendan Allen and Paul Craig winner. You've got them potentially doing this with Costa. Like, Costa's not going to be at a super long time. They could rebook that fight. There's just a lot of options here. And I get that Chimaev has a lot of international appeal and they want to rush him to become a UFC champion. I understand that too. And here's another thing people aren't even really considering either. What if Adesanya gets back to the title picture? Adesanya's been pretty adamant in interviews that he does not want to fight Kamaru Usman. They're friends. I know there's been some talk about Usman wanting to fight him, but that was mainly through his manager, I think, trying to get him a payday here. But has anyone considered the fact that if Usman wins next Saturday, him and Adesanya, that's probably a fight that's not going to happen. Maybe it does. Maybe they put their differences aside, but I think people are really underestimating the fact that these two are very good friends and they're probably not going to want to fight each other. And then that maybe forces Adesanya up. But if if the UFC had it their way, who do you think they want as middleweight champion right now? They want Israel Adesanya as champion. He's the most popular fighter in the division next to Chimaev. I think they're both very popular. I think Adesanya is more popular than Chimaev personally, but that's another thing I don't think people are talking about enough with this fact that it's a title eliminator. I think Usman and Adesanya want to fight each other. So why don't you save the hassle here, give Drakus the title shot, and not have this scenario play out? I mean, why even have rankings if you're going to do this? Because then we'll just take the most popular fighter and put him in a situation, because that's kind of what we're getting here now. Because again, I don't agree with this at all. And just to sort of summarize here. So if Chimaev wins, look, I get the hype behind Chimaev. I get that he's undefeated. There's a lot of, interesting things to like here about that. But if he beats Usman, he will have no ranked middleweight wins. On the flip side for Usman, I know he's a former champion, but he's lost 2 in a row. When it comes down to it, he's lost 2 straight fights. And now he's getting this opportunity here. And even if he wins, he's not going to have a ranked middleweight win either. Chimaev is not ranked at middleweight right now because he has no ranked wins. Just to me, it does not make a lot of sense there as far as them getting the title shot. And I feel like not enough people are talking about this. I see a lot of people complaining about Colby Covington getting his title shot. And who does Drakus fight now? Let's talk about that real quick before we get out of here. What are his options, right? Jared Cannonier's booked against Roman Dolidze. Does he have to fight Marvin Vettori? Like, looking at the rankings right now, who does he need to fight? Vettori's out there, yeah, but I think he beats Vettori. Cannonier's fighting Dolidze. Paulo Costa, maybe he fights Costa now. I don't know. Does he fight Jack Hermanson? Like, what do you do with Drakus at this point? I just really think the UFC is dropping the ball here, because you saw after that win over Robert Whittaker, a lot of the fans wanted to see Drakus get this opportunity. And now it looks like he's being pushed to the side, and I don't agree with that at all. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let's have a nice discussion about this. I know there's going to be people disagreeing with me here on this take, but let's at least talk about this in a civil manner. If you don't want to, then whatever. Then we won't have that discussion. But I'm willing to talk with you guys if you're willing to have, and I'm willing to hear your arguments here. But I do not think this should be a title eliminator at all. Again, say it the last time so people don't accuse me of this. I like the fight with Chimaev and Usman. I just don't think it should be a title eliminator. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.